Lesotho, the birth of the Mountain Kingdom. To understand Lesotho's colonial past, we must start in the 1800s, when the Basotho people, led by King Moshoeshoe I, built a mountain refuge to defend against invaders, slave raiders, and chaos from all sides. Moshoeshoe welcomed refugees, united clans, and turned the highlands into a fortress of freedom. But as British and Boer ambitions grew, so did the pressure on this small but proud nation. In 1868, Moshoeshoe struck a deal with the British for protection from the Boers. That deal made Lesotho a British protectorate. Sounds safe, right? Well, not exactly. Lesotho was handed over to the Cape Colony, which tried to impose taxes, land seizures, and disarm the Basotho. That led to the Gun War of 1880 to 1881, where ordinary Basotho farmers rose, fought back, and said no to colonial rule. The British quickly backed off and ruled Lesotho directly as Basutoland. But let's be clear, this was not a partnership. It was an extraction with a polite face. Most Basotho were subsistence farmers, living off the land. But the land was limited and heavily taxed. That pushed tens of thousands of Basotho men into migrant labor, working in the gold and diamond mines of South Africa under brutal conditions. It wasn't just about jobs, it was a colonial design. The British benefited from the cheap labor while Lesotho became dependent on remittances. Families were split, communities hollowed out, and the working class suffered quietly but deeply. As men left for the mines, women became the backbone of Lesotho. They worked the fields, raised children, managed households, and even organized against colonial policies. Many women began forming informal networks and cooperatives to survive. They passed on oral history, preserved resistance culture, and held communities together. Some even engaged in tax protests, refusing to pay colonial levies or demanding fair prices for their produce. They weren't marching with rifles, but they were fighting in kitchens, fields, and markets every single day. British rule introduced schools and missionary education, but with one goal: to create a class of obedient clerks and laborers. But the plan backfired. Educated Basotho youths started questioning the system. Why were their families poor while British officials lived in luxury? Why was their land governed from far away? In the 1950s and 60s, students and young professionals began secret study groups, wrote letters, published underground newsletters, and built links with other liberation movements in southern Africa. They knew the pen could be just as mighty as the pickaxe. By the 1950s, the demand for independence had grown louder. And it wasn't just the elites speaking. It was teachers, nurses, farmers, miners, and the youth who demanded a voice. Political parties emerged like the Basutoland Congress Party, BCP, and the Basotho National Party, BNP. These parties competed, debated, and sometimes clashed, but they reflected the growing urgency of ordinary people who wanted freedom, not just from Britain, but from inequality. In 1966, Lesotho gained independence, but that was only the beginning. The structures of class inequality and dependence on South Africa's economy remained. Still, it was a victory won through decades of resistance, big and small, led not just by kings and politicians, but by mothers, students, herders, and workers. Lesotho's story reminds us that freedom is never gifted. It is built step by step by the invisible hands of ordinary people. The women who farmed when their husbands were gone. The youths who read by candlelight and dared to dream. The miners who kept working while whispering revolution. This mountain kingdom may be small, but its spirit of resistance towers high. Thanks for watching Untold Africa, where the voices of the past still echo today. If you believe that history belongs to the people, like this video, subscribe, and share the story. And remember, the mountains may be steep, but the people are steeper.